Gannett. I'm the president for the Rotary Club of Harrisburg, and I invite you to join us for a traditional luncheon meeting, service on a Monday, or Rotary alternate meeting. Everyone's invited, and that means you. Check out our website or Facebook page for more information.
So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you give Bob a very warm Rotary welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, a little bit about 108 years old, and there's not very many engineering firms in this country that have the same name in our business that are that old. We have 65 offices and a fairly significant presence in Toronto right now. So we have one international office, 2,800 employees. We're growing fast. So from the 2,500, we do a lot of things, roads and bridges and wastewater treatment plants and dams, environmental construction services, and an IT company. And you mentioned the IT company. We build a system that the military today still uses to track everything around the globe. So it's kind of a very diverse company. And as you can imagine, infrastructure is really important to us, and the investment that's being made in infrastructure. And so I'll tell you a little bit about all of that. Huge impact on infrastructure, but so is decarbonization. So we all react to this, and we want to be good stewards of our world, and let's move towards decarbonization, electrical vehicles, for example. Everybody wants to get an electric car, and our clients that are transit agencies and buses, they'd love to go to electric buses, but there's a lot of issues with that. If you're going to take a long trip in an electric car right now, it's not that easy. There's this limited mileage. You can probably go 300 miles. You got to find a charging. We don't have the infrastructure in place right yet to be able to support a trucking industry to move to electric, or a bus transit agency to move their buses to electric. And if you start to think about the problems of that, think about just a simple bus transit. If we went to electric, well, the battery only lasts so long. Well, that route that was designed before didn't think about that. So that bus is not going to be able to do the same route. So what is that new route? And we need to be able to plug it in and charge it up over here, but there's no power there. We don't have a grid that can deliver the energy where we need it. So how do you do that? You got to build microgrids. The good news about that is it makes our energy grid more redundant because we have different power areas, that's all really good. But that's a whole another piece of infrastructure that has to be built. So we can build out so that we can go and get electric cars and drive electric buses. And of course, renewables and solar and wind are a great source of energy. But the trouble is the sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow. And if you're not careful, bad things can happen, like in Texas, where the wind turbines, they didn't get those, they didn't plan for the fact that it could get freezing temperatures, and they froze up and the sun wasn't shining. And the next thing you know, they didn't have the energy. The energy plants couldn't keep up, and a lot of damage, billions of dollars of damage occurred in the state. So it's very complicated, by the way, how this all works. In California, they actually produce more energy than they need with solar and wind. So what do you do with that power? You try to sell it, but our system isn't really designed really efficiently to move electrons the other direction. So there's just a whole lot of infrastructure needs there. And by the way, the key to solar and renewables is storage. And my personal feeling is batteries aren't going to be the answer. There's just not enough precious metals to be able to store all of our energy we need. We're going to have to do something else. And there's pumped storage, and there's hydrogen fuel cells, and those kinds of things. And another thing we're doing in this area of decarbonization is sustainability, designing buildings with a zero carbon footprint, designing bridges that'll last 100 years and be able to take the onslaught of the hurricanes and all that. Another force of change that's happening to our infrastructure you might not be aware of is onshoring. So I came as a real shock to me a couple of years ago. I went to buy a new car, and I was told, this is in the middle, just when COVID was starting, and the supply chain was a complete mess. And I said, this is the car that I want. And they said I couldn't have that car. But if I wanted a car, I would have to take less fancy stuff, and I asked why, and they said because there's not enough chips and we can't get the chips to supply on time. And so we decided that we're going to cut back all the vehicles and so all the fancy stuff like 360 backup and all that stuff, we're going to use those chips and we can do more cars. You're just going to have to sacrifice on some of the fancy stuff on your car. I never thought that would, I never would have dreamed that could have happened. But it wasn't just the auto industry and the chip industry. If we're going to bring businesses back, we have to have very strong infrastructure, because if we're going to produce it here, we have to be able to deliver that service or that product very efficiently so that we can remain competitive. So what's our status? Real quickly, civil engineering, American Society of Civil Engineers report card for America infrastructure puts us all over in the United States at a C-. And did you know that there is a water main break every 2 minutes, and an estimated 6 billion with a B gallons of treated water are lost each day in the United States, and that's enough to fill 9,000 swimming pools of treated water every day. The growing wear and tear on our nation's road have left 43% of our public roadways in poor or mediocre condition. And we have 30,000 miles of inventory levies across the United States. Bringing it close to home, Pennsylvania data, our overall grade is a C-. Our bridges are a D+. Here in Pennsylvania, drinking water is a D. Roads are a C-. Stormwater is a D, and transit's a D, and wastewater is a D-. So we have a ways to go here. It's real, I gotta say, this is a real challenge. We're trying to attract and retain businesses here in Pennsylvania. Infrastructure is key. And I know there's a lot more to bring in businesses in here and retaining them. It's workforce. It's education, it's workforce, it's laws and, energy and all kinds of things. But infrastructure is a really key part to that. So along comes the IIJA, which is, this once in a generation investment in infrastructure, $1.2 trillion and almost everything, roads, bridges, dams, environment, air. It covers the gamut, and it's very exciting. It's what we need. We are competing in a global economy, and we're getting out developed in this area. So I'm very excited that we're making this right investment. But we have to be competitive, and we have to be able to bring businesses back here and do it efficiently. We talk about infrastructure for decades, relying on the fuel tax, and cars are getting so efficient, the funds aren't there to support our infrastructure. So we finally put something meaningful in there that'll make a difference. So here's Gannett Fleming. If we're number 29 in engineering news record, top 500 engineering companies in the world. We're number 29. We're headquartered right here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I got 1,200 employees in Pennsylvania, even though we have 65 other offices. So last year, we are at historic performance. Gannett Fleming, we're doing great. Historic revenue, historic profit. We've grown from, we're 2,800 employees. We're almost 300 now. We are doing really well. And the board sat back and said, what are we going to look like in 10 years? What's an engineering firm going to look like in 10 years? And how do we thrive in the face of all this dramatic change? And as great as we were doing, we felt we had to at least look at other alternatives. We were doing well, we were profitable, and we had capital to make some investments, but pretty modest. So we looked into private equity as what would that even be? Educate ourselves. What would private equity offer us? And we saw that, being able to have that kind of capital and be able to grow our company where we're not as thick as we need to be. We need to be able to pursue these large jobs. We want to win the $200 million job to make Gannett Fleming successful. We want to thrive for another 100 years. So we decided that that's probably something we want to do so that we have the money to invest in technology, and to add depth and where we're not as deep as we are here in Pennsylvania, where we have lots of, lots of people. So when we started looking at private equity firms, and as you can imagine, private companies see IIJA and they see dollar signs and they want in. So we look for private equity firms that matched our culture, but that they didn't have anything to do with engineering at the time or infrastructure. And so we did a strategic investment with a company called Ocean Sound, and Gannett Fleming is their platform. So as we go around and leverage their capital, and our intent is to acquire companies to make us more strategic in areas and the geographies that we want to be stronger in, like California and Texas and Florida, or get into the energy space in a more meaningful way. It'll all be built on the name Gannett Fleming, because it's important to us to take a 108-year-old firm and that we have a legacy of Gannett Fleming and to maintain the name of Gannett Fleming. And so, because we want to be around for another 100 years, right? So anyway, I will just conclude by saying, thanks for letting me talk to you about Gannett Fleming and infrastructure. Gannett Fleming's an amazing company. I'm so blessed to be working for a company like this. I'll tell you that right now. Boy, that is $1 million question. We talk about it a lot. We see it. We do see movement that way. But this also, that very topic plays into when you have 65 offices. We're still in a hybrid working environment. I got people showing up to an office one day a week. And what's going to happen with that? Same exact thing. We design transit systems, and their ridership is at 50%. Well, they need the fares to support the to keep the system up and running. So everybody's wants to know the answer to that. I think we are going to get back there, but I just think it's going to take a while. I really do. Everybody's kind of, there's a lot of, I have friends who lived in the city, moved out of the city because they could work from home, and they're liking it a lot. I have some friends that have moved to a beautiful vacation spot to do the work, and boy, now I'm trying to pry them out and saying, you be back in the office one day a week. Good luck with that. Unfortunately, my company, Gannett Fleming, doesn't do any work in the city of Harrisburg at all. I think I wish that wasn't the case, but we don't do it. I have no knowledge about it, but it doesn't surprise me, because it's going to be the typical situation you have in every other city, where if you're neglecting your infrastructure, you're going to have leaks. You're going to have leaks in your water, you're going to have leaks in your wastewater, you're going to overflow your wastewater treatment plants. The overflow is going to go into the river. Right. So it's a matter of investing. I think it's going to be this is again, my personal feeling here. I think it's going to be a combination of several things going on. We simply do not have the power on our current grid to drive everything we want. That's for sure. And he has better numbers than I would have given you. And I know it's significantly under what we need. So the development of microgrids is going to be really important. And to the extent that we can develop those microgrids using renewable energy, solar and wind, is going to be very, very important. And what that's going to do is create places to generate energy in locations that we can't get the grid to supplement that. The key to this whole thing, though, is storage. You just need to be able to store energy when you're not using it, because otherwise it just goes away. And so, very efficient means is pump storage, where you use the extra energy and you pump water up at the top of a mountain or a reservoir, and you pull the plug when you need the energy, and the water runs down and drives a turbine and generates electricity. That's probably the most efficient thing today. But I also think that batteries aren't this is personal again, feeling batteries aren't the answer. There's not enough precious metals for us to make enough batteries in this world to do everything you need. And, I think that hydrogen is something like that. An alternative fuel like hydrogen fuel cell is going to be part of the equation, and not reliant on the scenario you painted there, because we're not going to build power plants. And one of the things you're seeing is nuclear. You start to hear a lot that word nuclear is starting to show up a lot. And smaller nuclear, they're talking about smaller nuclear, safer nuclear, but it's coming back. They're talking about it more frequently than you thought it would be gone forever. I don't believe it.